All right, let's jump straight into it. We are immersing ourselves right into the pristine, high-altitude terrain of the Bhagirathi Valley, nestled way up deep in the Himalayas. And this isn't just some breathtaking mountain vista. This is a place where raw, powerful nature and ancient, enduring culture literally embrace one another. It's the cradle of one of the most revered rivers on Earth.
To truly wrap our heads around this region, we really have to grasp its deep sanctity. Picture this. Back in the 8th century CE, the great sage Adi Shankaracharya stood in this exact valley and wrote the Sri Gangastotram. He penned, "O goddess Ganga, you are the divine river descended from heaven. You adorn Lord Shiva's crown." Wow, that profound quote really sets a deeply reverent tone because for millennia, this landscape hasn't just been geography, it's been divine. But today, we're going on an analytical journey to see exactly what happens when ancient divinity collides with modern environmental reality.
And that brings us perfectly to the core theme of today's explainer, myth versus matter in the Upper Ganga. We are going to be contrasting the enduring religious reverence of Uttarakhand, a devotion that draws millions of pilgrims every single year, against the harsh scientific realities of a rapidly melting ecosystem. So how do these two seemingly opposite worlds exist in the exact same physical space?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the sacred landscape. Second, legends of Sem Mukhem. Third, multiple ontologies. Fourth, tracing the Holy Ganga. And finally, a fragile ecosystem.
Part 1. The Sacred Landscape, Tehri Garhwal District. So we're heading into the ancient high-altitude district of Tehri Garhwal in Uttarakhand. It's a region completely defined by its towering peaks, dense forests, and the deep, profound faith of the people who've called it home for centuries. Now imagine you're trekking up through the pine forests to about 2,900 meters above sea level, near the remote village of Sem Mukhem. You look around and you notice something kind of strange about the natural rock formations dotting the landscape. From a distance, they don't just look like random boulders, they look remarkably like a herd of cattle. It immediately makes you wonder, why on earth are the rocks shaped like cattle up here in the middle of nowhere? Well, the local people have this absolutely captivating origin myth for it. The story goes all the way back to the Dwapar Yuga. That's the era of Lord Krishna. Legend has it that Krishna was so enchanted by the beauty of this area that he asked the local ruler, King Gang Ramola, for a small piece of land. But the king, seeing only a wandering man, flat out refused him. Big mistake. Angered by this, Krishna used his divine powers and miraculously turned all of the king's prized cattle into solid stone. Realizing the sheer power of the deities standing before him, the terrified king begged for forgiveness and offered the land. Krishna accepted, deciding to settle there in the form of Sheshnag, the serpent king. And those stones, yep, they are still sitting there today. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive scale of the devotion that grew from that legend. Because today, the Sem Mukhem Nagraja Temple stands right on that site, and it features an entrance gate that is a staggering 27 feet high and 14 feet wide. To put that into perspective, carved into this massive gate is the beautiful image of Lord Krishna joyfully playing his flute while standing atop the head of Nagaraj, the Serpent King. It's just a colossal, tangible monument to an ancient myth. Let's move to and see how this builds into part 2, multiple ontologies, clashing perspectives. This brings us into a much broader conceptual tension that defines the entire region today. We're transitioning from a local myth to what researchers call multiple ontologies, which is really just a fancy way of saying multiple, distinct ways of experiencing and defining what is real. This comparison perfectly captures this critical split in perspective. On one side, you have the priests and the pilgrims. For them, the Ganga is a goddess. She's inherently pure, a self-cleaning deity whose waters literally wash away sins. Their focus is entirely on ritual purity and traditional rites. But right next to them, operating in the exact same space, are the technocrats and environmental scientists. They don't see a self-cleaning goddess at all. They see a severely threatened water system. They're busy measuring the horrifying reality that 1.5 billion liters, billion with a B, of sewage and industrial waste enter the wider river system every single day. One group sees unbreakable divinity, the other sees measurable ecological collapse. It's a really stark disconnect.
Part 3, Tracing the Holy Ganga, Journey to the Source.
Now, to really understand where these two worlds collide most powerfully, we need to trace the river back to its absolute birthplace. Following the ancient 15-kilometer pilgrimage trail, which is this rocky, pretty treacherous path from the town of Gangotri, brings you here to Gamuk, which literally translates to the cow's mouth. You can just see the turbulent, freezing water bursting forth from the glacial snout. It's intense. When British explorers John Hodgson and James Herbert first officially recorded their visit here back in 1817, they were struck with absolute awe. They described a solid, frozen snow wall nearly 300 feet thick, an accumulation of ice built up over ages. It's a place of incredible raw power.
Section 4. A fragile ecosystem, the melting source.
But here's the problem. That raw power is under unprecedented threat. So the crucial point is, and it's alarming, the Gamuk Glacier is rapidly retreating. Environmental monitoring shows a recession rate of 10 to 40 meters every single year. The massive ice cave that those explorers saw in 1817 has actually moved at least 16 kilometers upstream since the Holocene era, and the pace is only accelerating due to climate change and human impact in the region. The very source of the water is literally melting away.
And this melting ice isn't just a matter of water supply. It's entirely a matter of habitat. Now, what's really interesting about this is, look at that beautiful alpine chough resting on the rocks right at Gamuk, with Mount Shivling in the background. The landscape is a delicately balanced, living network. Entire species rely completely on this precise, high-altitude, cold-weather ecosystem just to survive. When the glacier changes, their whole world collapses.
In fact, the Gangotri National Park is an eco-sensitive zone bursting with incredible biodiversity. We are talking about the elusive snow leopard, the adorable mountain rodent known as the pika, the blue mountain sheep called the bahal, and the famous Pojpatra or Himalayan birch trees. And here is a super fascinating local detail for you. The bark of the Bojpatra tree is so incredibly fine and paper-like that historically it was actually used as parchment to write down ancient sacred texts. And until very recently, local astrologers even used it to write people's horoscopes. The natural ecosystem and the cultural heritage are quite literally bound together.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we absolutely must ask ourselves today. How do we balance the sacred rite of pilgrimage with the urgent need for ecological preservation? The region faces a massive influx of visitors, numbers that far exceed the local population, bringing immense pressure, pollution, and infrastructure demands to a deeply fragile landscape. Can we respect the multiple ontologies here? Can we honor the goddess whose waters wash away sins while simultaneously taking responsibility for the physical river that is crying out for our help? It's a profound tension between preserving an ancient divine myth and saving a fragile, tangible ecosystem. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I leave you to ponder that vital question.